Yes, it's Monday. I love Mondays. I love Mondays as if I take a day off. Look at that. It's up. Bam. It is up. The sign is up. I'll tell you, the O's a little crooked, but he's going to come back and he's going to fix that today when he gets it all lit up and all wired. The sign is up. Yum, 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 yum. Yes, sir. Good morning, Tom. Hello, handsome. Your hat is in the mail.
It should be there. He should have gotten it yesterday.
You may have already gotten it. It says it's been delivered. That's what Mom said. Mom dropped it in the mail. Thanks, Mom.
Welcome.
Happy Monday. We're talking about how to build a real estate team. We're talking about the most important books to read when building a real estate team. Look at this. Millionaire Real Estate Agent. You gotta read it. Squad structure. We've been running in teams for a long time, right? We just, how different is a real estate team from a squad, a military company, a basketball team, right? So when we talk about these different things, we talk about team building, you could talk about a lot of this different stuff and you can apply it to your business. Millionaire Real Estate Agent. Adam Nelson gave me this book. I have notes. Everybody likes it. Oh, did you read that book, Serpa? This is like chocked full of notes, just like The One Thing is, just like 48 Laws of Power is. And that's what I do. I read. There's a lot of people who don't read. They don't improve themselves. Team building is the same thing regardless of what you're doing, whether you're building a community, whether you're building an office, whether you're building a real estate team, whether you're preparing to go to war, it's all the same thing. I talk often about The Art of War. Actually, I have several of these copies. I might actually start giving these away. So I'm going to move my bookshelf in here. I'm going to make it so that nobody's allowed to take my books out of my office. They can come in, they can take a picture, they can buy their own copy. But it's important for people to know these things, and also I reference them frequently. The Art of War, how to lead a team, how to lead a squad. These are the sort of things that you need to embrace and you need to get after. Zach, can you make calls in my office, please? Thank you. This is The Art of War. Every war throughout history has been fought over real estate. Every war throughout history. Some of it over mental illness. Thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. Zach and I are twinsies today. Look at that. Who wore it better? Uh-oh.
Is that even a question?
Look at this.
Is that even a question?
Look at this guy. Who wore it better? Don't answer. I always feel a little fat in the morning. And then this guy had to show up wearing the same thing. Damn you, Zach. Damn you being so handsome. But hey, you've got to make really great frenemies. Right? Light or dark? I'm the dark energy. Zach's the light energy, right? I'm just kidding. But I'm not kidding. Zach is in the Air Force. He's a clean guy. Tends to be pretty clean cut. Although I've dressed up as the palatable radical. It's grand opening week. I got to make sure that people can swallow this message that I've got coming. Zen Business. Read this book. Get this book on Audible. Get this book on Audible. I can tell you some of the really great things about this. First off, we go into Christianity in depth as the religion of the West, and we apply it to business and to our life's principle, our life's journeys. We go over what bodhicitta is, which I believe is the next step after Zen. It's that radical dedication to other sentient beings. We talk about zazen and meditation and achieving no mind, work as play. We talk about the Bushido, having a warrior code with which you not only live your business, you live your life, etc. Anyway, we'll get more into it another time because today is not that day. And then both my favorite book, you can see this one. This one's been weathered a little bit. I've got my my book mark in here because what they do is they give you all of these notes, but then they also give all of this stuff in reference in depth later on. And I can tell you, it's the kind of thing that it kind of makes you want to go take a shower afterwards, right? So when you study power, look at this. Do not commit to anyone. Stay above the fray. That's a pretty That's a pretty intense thing. So the thing is, like we talk about, do not commit to anyone, but when you apply that to business, it is diversify. You know, I get a lot of people saying, "Hey, listen, if I am your escrow officer, if I am your lender, if I am your floor guy, am I going to be the only floor guy?" And I say, "Am I going to be your only real estate agent?" That's the truth. And they do not like it when you ask these questions often. They say, "Oh." So the right people smile about it. The right people smile about it and they go, "Huh, you know what? You're absolutely right." Okay, so we're going to get into this right here is our grand opening. This is building a team. This is building a different kind of team. We're building community, right? Men of the Valley, Women's Empowerment, Military Mondays, Senior Sundays, yoga and meditation with Muladhara Gaea. Hilarious comedy every first and third Friday with Johnny Herrera. Hooked on painting, paint and sip sessions. We've got the French Valley Merchant Market. We've got food. People want to eat. The food, sir. The food alone is worth the trip. That's an obscure movie reference. Who's got it? The food alone, sir, is worth the trip. New Orleans. Is it New Orleans?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what movie is that, Aim?
Almost Heroes.
Almost Heroes.
Heroes.
It's a great movie. Great movie. That's The Office, as if you need a picture right there. So the idea is, we've got popcorn, we've got pudding, yum, 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 Lola's cupcakes, we've got sweet macaroons, goodness gracious, and plus Chef Rivera is going to bring something. I don't know what he's bringing. We've got DF Catering, they're going to bring something. I don't know what they're going to bring. And then we've got MK's Kitchen. I'm not totally sure what they're going to bring, but I know it's going to be worth it. And then the next day, of course, we're going to laugh. Hilarious comedy. Yes, it's going to be fantastic. Got P-Man, Roberto Rodriguez, and then Scott Punchline Wood, plus Johnny Herrera. It's going to be fantastic. I have a feeling it's going to sell out, but I don't want to, jinx myself here. I have a feeling it's going to sell out. So anyway, this is I'm building another team. I'm building a group of people that I want to work with. A group of people that, I was telling Amy, whether I was preparing for war or building a community, it might be the same exact people. It might be the same exact people because I love these people. It's a great thing to look at. Okay, so now we're going to get into team building. Okay, I'm not going to talk about how to build a two-person team because that's not a team. Building a two-person team, often like you'll see like a husband and wife that decide to work together, that's not necessarily a team. Although when you look at that, you've got to decide what are your roles. And that's one of the things that I talked about with my high school class because in it is a high school teacher and his son, a high school student, and they've started a team together. And so they decided on some roles. He's going to predominantly handle the listings because he's available nights and weekends. And then his son is going to be administrative and logistics, boots on the ground, and he's going to work with the buyers because he is very, very available. And so the thing is, like, the two of them diversify their two-person team to decide where each person fits so that no one is threatened, everyone's roles are clearly established, and that was done after this class now that I'm teaching you because they took the notes, they talked about it, and they came back and they said, hey, we decided to establish some clear roles. And so that's what we're going to get into. We're really going to dive in deep into how to build a real estate team. And of course, if you have any questions whatsoever, just let me know. And feel free to send me a message, and we'll jump on a Zoom at some point or another, and we'll address them. I enjoy coaching. I enjoy teaching. The best thing about teaching is that everyone brings me coffee in the morning. Everyone brings me coffee. So it's so caffeinated. Okay, so two-person teams are great, but that's not where we're starting. So you really have to decide what kind of a team are you building. Are you going to build a team that is about longevity, where you're really eating together, you're collaborating together, or are you going to have a team that is based on high turnover? Now, a lot of these teams that have high turnover, they don't really promote their agents. They're not in the trenches with them. they're in a situation to where it's all about them, and then it becomes their high turnover team that's constantly getting recycled out because they treat their team members like employees. In this day and age, nobody wants to be managed. Thank you. Love you, buddy. Appreciate that. You can send me a coffee. I just sent you a hat, Tom. All right, my brother. I appreciate you tuning in. Here we go. We're going to move forward. Now, I really like to work with agents that have struggled a little bit. I like to work with agents that have, maybe they've been in the business for 6 months or a year or 2 years, and they haven't necessarily closed a lot of transactions, because when they come on a team, they really understand what they're getting. They understand what they're building together, right? They understand the benefit of getting a lead. Now, that being said, I have sort of revitalized my strategy since teaching this class initially years ago, and that I really like to work with new agents, because new agents come in and they don't necessarily have the bad habits. They don't necessarily have the expectations of what it means to be on a team. And so they're willing to approach business from a more unorthodox perspective. And if you all know me, you certainly know that I like to do things a little bit unorthodox. So there is benefits in both. You don't necessarily want to bring somebody on your team that is like that has been making $100,000 a year a lot of times, because they can come in with a little bit of an ego and an expectation, unless they're coming at it from a leadership perspective of like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to be a part of this squad, but I'm also going to respect the OGs in the office, right? And so it is really collaborative. And if you walk into any room believing you can't learn something from the people in it, you are no longer green, you are not growing, which means that you are dead on the vine. Your roots are going to start drying up. You are no longer receiving sustenance from the people around you. So there is a loyalty factor that comes along with taking somebody that might have struggled, is new to a career, has never made this kind of money before, and then helping them to make their first $100,000. And they tend to stick around when the going gets tough. They tend to want to sharpen steel. Now, steel sharpens steel. That's absolutely 100% the truth. And if you're in a situation where you're surrounded by people who have been with you for a while, they may be able to catch you when you're slipping. They may be able to catch you when you're sleeping, and they can also help to constantly improve these systems. Now, the reason why the David Serpa Homes team or the Homes team became so good was we were a group of people that were constantly adding to the fire, right? So if I had a fire going, other people were coming, adding to the fire, contributing, being a part of it, telling their stories. And so I've developed this brand around fire, around gathering, around community, because I think that that's such an important part of a team, which is why a lot of these expansion teams fail, which is why a lot of these people who try to go into multiple cities really struggle, because there's going to be a new generation of business, which is a return to the locality, which is going to be a response to some of these sort of predatory actions that we see being practiced by some of the big box companies, right? So think about and outline clearly what is expected from your team and what is expected from you. Now, whether you are a brand new agent joining a team and you want to ask what is going to be expected of me, or whether you are deciding to start a team and you want to outline for people what you are going to expect, you have to understand that that goes both ways. That's a mirror, right? So if people look at you slacking, or people look at you phoning it in, thank you for the Danish. If people look at you slacking and people look at you phoning it in, they're going to be more likely to tune out. They're going to be more likely to mirror their leadership. And if their leadership is absent, if their leadership is lacking, if their leadership is not diversified in a group of people versus one person who's limiting their growth versus saying, God, I hope you outgrow me. I hope you outgrow me, right? Here's, create your ownership in it. If you outgrow me, it'll be good for both of us. And that's the beauty of EXP, which is this brokerage that is within our community. Okay, so observe your team in action. If you hunt together, if you fish together, if you're prospecting together, it's one of those things that you should be observing them, where they are working, how they are working, And of course, a lot of what we're doing is business to business. It's working within the community. So I actually get to see it firsthand just by not leaving the office, just by being a part of that, but then also being a part of the merchant market every Sunday. So I tell people, people are contacting me regularly and asking me, how do I start in our community? And I said, the first thing is going to be working your business to business, because real estate agents hang out with too many other real estate agents, right? Anchor into your community. That's going to be the answer. And then the second is going to be to monetize your network, because your network will determine your net worth. And if everybody has skin in the game versus just soaking a lender, just soaking an escrow officer, instead everybody says, I'm chipping in what I can, we're all adding to the fire. The fire grows exponentially, because you're in a situation where instead of saying, hey, get into real estate, get into real estate, get into real estate, right? Hey, let's recruit you, we're saying, hey, flooring guy, hey, wall guy, hey, friggin' the artist, Kristen Saber, like the comedian, the yoga, our yogi, how can we help you create a more broad network, which will then expand our network as well? We're all eating together. A lot of people didn't want to buy into our community network when I pitched it 3 years ago. A lot of people said I needed a foundation. The foundation is here, but it's not as important as everybody tries to act like it is. It can be built with phone calls. It can be built with a farmer's market, a merchant market, a street market, et cetera, and so forth. You just have to anchor into the community. You have to build your business in the trenches, which is what I always did. So when people say, oh, well, how is that real estate related? Well, from the beginning, my team, instead of door knocking, saying, do you have anyone who needs to buy and sell real estate? Do you have anyone who needs to buy and sell real estate? Hey, send business my way. We said, hey, we've got our Easter extravaganza coming up. We have our 4th of July Fall Festival. We have our our French Valley Fall Festival. We've got our Christmas event. And then that way we're door knocking with the give. Now our gives are just about daily. Just about daily. It's yoga. I mean, we still have the 4 community events right out front. But we also have the merchant market. We also have everything else going on. And so we're the senior Sundays. We are giving without the ask, but the ask is implied. The ask is implied. Hey, listen, if you know anyone who needs to buy and sell real estate, right? Okay, so moving forward, that is the difference between the old way of doing business and the new way of doing business is networking with your community, anchoring into your community. How will your small business beat Amazon? How will your locality, your local real estate office beat Zillow? They can't beat you in the trenches because Zillow doesn't sponsor baseball teams. They've never volunteered in the school. They've never created a networking event where other people are getting paid. That's just the truth. I could go off on a much longer tangent, but instead let's keep moving forward. Why do you want to join a team? The inverse, why do you want to start a team, right? There are 3 questions that I suggest that everyone ask a new team member to find out whether or not they are going to set off any red flags. These are the 3 questions that I ask that if I ask them and they set off a red flag, I do not hire them. Whether I am doing a group hiring or whether I'm doing an individual hiring, I ask for the DISC, I ask for the Myers-Briggs, because a lot of people won't fill out their DISC. And if they won't do the basic thing, which is a 10-minute free assessment, I know that they're not worth an interview, right? Okay, I will ask them, why did you want to join a team? Why do you want to join a team? Why do you want to join, right? Now, if you ask, why do you want to join a team? These are the 3 things that they can respond that will set off a red flag. Well, I just want to get my start. I just want to get my start. That means they're treating you as a stepping stone to create their own power and then create power, cultivate it with you, and then take it from you, right? Instead, you don't want someone who's looking to get their start. You want someone who wants to build and grow with you, right? I really love what you're doing. I want to be a part of it. I want to see how I can contribute, right? Those are really things, like when I listen to people talking about giving when they're joining a team, I'm like, wow, this is what I want. This is what I'm looking for, right? Now, if somebody says, I'm looking to join a team to get my feet wet, that's the second red flag. I'm getting my feet wet says, I'm treating you as a stepping stone to get somewhere else. I just want to get my feet wet. I want to learn how to swim here, and then I'm going to skedaddle, right? The third red flag that when people ask me about it, I give some leniency here, but when people ask me, how many leads do you provide? Because for me, it's not about come and, get on my teeth and I'm going to nurture you to success. It's about teaching people how to fish, teaching people how to hunt, hunting with them, showing them how to honor their design in their business. And then that way it creates growth and ownership for them. That's about longevity. That is about anchoring into your community. That is about abundance instead of scarcity. How much will you give me from your table? How much will you give me? Instead, how are you guys creating? How are you guys creating leads? How can we? What are you guys doing at your open houses? Can you give me a free takeaway? I love when people ask me if they can get a free takeaway. Like, can I get a free takeaway? Are you kidding me? I'll give you 20 free takeaways. Because for me, it's about abundance. It's not about scarcity. So when I do a hiring event, I'm giving them an opportunity to interview me just as much as I'm interviewing them. Do you have any questions for me? Do you have any questions for me? So that's question one. Those are all the red flags that come with question one. Question two is, what do you expect from me? What do you expect from me as your team lead? Now, when you're asking people, what do you expect from me, you're giving them you're giving them an opportunity to set expectations. Because then you could see what their experiences with teams in the past has been. You can see what they're expecting from you and whether or not you can financially provide it or whether you can provide it with your time. Because if people say, I want to make sure that I can always be able to get a hold of you, noon or, whether it's in the morning or the night, my last team leader would answer my phone in the middle of the night. I'm like, your last team lead wasn't doing enough business. Your last team lead didn't have good enough systems, right? So when I ask them, what did you expect from me? And I'm not going to put people on blast, but I'm listening. Because that's what I'm doing in an interview predominantly. I want to listen. I want to find out where they're coming from. What do you expect from me? I don't know. I expect that I could be able to get a hold of you in a reasonable amount of time. When are your monthly meetings? Or do you have daily meetings? Like them sort of coming back and be like, well, what do you do? Like, how can I be a part of this? And because I really love collaborative people, really high I's are very collaborative. S's and C's tend to be very administratively minded. We'll get into that later. You want people with some D in their personality, especially on your buyer's agent side and your listing agent side. But if you get a 99D like me, they're going to be constantly questioning you and trying to prove the systems. And it can be difficult if you're not open to that kind of feedback. My partner was just as big of a D as I am, and we would he made me better for years. He improved my systems, and it was good for me. I grew exponentially from it. Like I like to say, I quote him regularly. Like, if you're not complaining or if you're not offering solutions, you're just complaining. So of course, I have a great deal of respect for Rob Morrow and how he helped me create my business initially. How much money do you want to make? I love to ask this question, how much money do you want to make? Because then if they shatter it in the next year and they want to leave, I'm like, whoa. You told me that you wanted to make $100,000 a year, that you'd be happy with that. Some people, hey, you told me you wanted to make $38,000 a year because it's more than you made last year. And I don't like to I used to be like, how come you don't want to make $1 million? How come you don't want to make six figures? Now I come into people and I come to them and I want the expectation. How much money do you expect to make? Okay, because it's $50,000, that's honorable. That's good enough. A lot of people are working to supplement an income. $50,000 is great. You just coach them differently than somebody who wants to make $100,000 a year, if that makes sense. But write down the initial number, the initial response, and then help them to at least attain that, right? Under promise and over deliver. So if somebody says, I want to make I'd be happy with $45,000, but I'm looking at them like, this person's going to make at least $100,000 next year. I'm not going to tell them that. I'm going to be like, hey, listen, let's do it. Let's get to work. How many hours a week would you be willing to work in order to make that kind of money? How many hours a week would you be willing to work in order to make that kind of money? In that, you're going to find out what they believe their hourly wage should be. And then you're going to be like, okay, because we're going to kill it. That's what I'm thinking. We're going to kill that. It's like, I want to make $80,000 a year. Okay, well, how many hours a week would you be willing to work to get there? Geez, if I could make $80,000, geez, I don't know, I'd work 60 hours a week. I'd work 60. Would you work 60? Wow, that's really impressive. Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about how to structure your week if you decide that you want to work with me and I decide that I want to work with you because I feel like that's attainable. Okay, Now, here are good questions to ask when joining a team. I put my pinky up. Okay, when I drink. What will my split be? You want to find out, what is my split going to be? How much of my commission are you going to be taking? Because I'm a very person-based, I think people are important. People are our most important and most underutilized resource on this planet. So if somebody's going to say, hey, what's my split going to be? Okay, well, your split's going to be 25%, right? That means they're taking 75%. 75%. Well, then you better be a showing assistant, right? Now, if you're on a 50-50 split, there's a lot of people on a 50-50 split who are making better money than people who are at a flat fee company, because 100% of zero is nothing. In fact, some of these agents that run these mega teams and they're paying for systems aren't cheap. Systems are expensive. And so understanding like the split isn't necessarily as important as the income. The split is not necessarily as important as the income. I don't know. I paid $3.95 a transaction. I'm pretty happy with that. Well, how much money are you making? How many transactions are you closing? Well, I closed 2 last year. Oh, wow. You sound like another real estate coach. You ready to go start coaching people into how they can start closing 2 a year too? Barf. Anyway, barf, barf, barf. How many leads will you provide? And this is one of those things that you're either going to get a new age answer or you're going to get an old age answer. How many leads do you provide? Well, these are how many leads we provide, and this is how much it's going to cost you to come and get on the tee. Or you can stand up on your own 2 feet, and I can teach you how to fish and create ownership in your own business. Different conversation. The third question that I want you to ask, that is a must ask in order to establish a baseline when you're joining a team, is can I take listings? What happens to listings? Now, if you're getting ready to join a team and your mom wants to list her house with you, or your neighbor, or somebody from your network, which is where a lot of business comes from, is your sphere. Am I right, Zach? Anyway, people just don't understand that your network determines your net worth, and so they try to buy leads. They try to buy. You know how many people that worked with me in the first 6-7 years of my career that just when I met with them, they said, I knew I was going to work with you 5 years ago. I knew I was going to work with you 5 years ago. Now, instead of building a real estate team, I'm building a community team. It's a different thing. That's going to empower my team to then create systems within this that I'm going to, of course, help them to do, and then foster that because leaders create other leaders. Okay, now you've got 2 different ways to look at this. You are either going to join a team, which means you're going to sell the team, or you are going to roll out as an individual, which means you're going to sell the strength of the individual or the company backing you. Okay, if you are selling the team, part of 48 Laws of Power is having contempt for what you don't have. Let me see which rule that is. It's probably not important, but it's having contempt for what you don't have. Always say less than is necessary, which if you translate to Zen, it's say 1/3 of it. I have a huge problem with saying 1/3 of it. There's a lot of really great options in here. I'm trying to figure out keep others in suspended terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. Ooh, so good. Crush your enemy totally. That's what it sounds like when we ride on our enemies. Ooh, ooh, yum, yum. Let's eat. Delicious. Plan all the way to the end. This looks like chaos because people don't realize how much I planned. Somebody said the other day, Christian Tikas, in fact, he was talking to a room full of people. He said, David sometimes seems like he's chaotic because people don't realize how far out in advance David is planned. Plan all the way to the end. There's a lot of really beautiful things in here. Here it is. Disdain things you cannot have. Ignoring them is the best revenge. Disdain things you cannot have. So if you are an individual agent and you can't start a team even though you would love to start a team, just have disdain for it. Be like, oh, you know what? The guy who was mentoring me, David Serpa, when he had a huge team, and at one point he had 28 people on his team, he told me the last person that you would be able to get a hold of was David. The last person that you'd be able to get a hold of is that person in the middle of the sign, on the front of the sign, et cetera, and so forth, right? So just do that. Hey, you know what? When I was at the very beginning of my career, when I did my 7 escrows in my first month, when people say, "Hey, listen, how long you been doing this?" You know what? I haven't been doing this for very long, but I went to school for this. I've been studying this. I have a pretty good understanding of marketing. You know what I mean? All these different things. Hey, how many escrows have you closed? I haven't closed an escrow, but don't you think I'll be all the more attentive to your house because I haven't closed an escrow yet? You know, you'll be 100% of my business. And I told people that in the beginning. You'll be 100%. You'll be my only client. And I'm doing this 100% of the time. I'm a full-time real estate agent, right? You will be my first, whatever. I said that a few times. And then what happened was all of a sudden, 100% of my business became 7 people. And all of those escrows getting closed, like $32,000 or something like that. A lot of money, right? Okay. So how many hours are you willing to work, right? So if you're selling the individual, this is your individual attention for me. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I stand for, right? Versus if you're selling the team. Hey, listen, this is my part in the team. I am I'm a listing agent. I have a transaction coordinator. They're going to be handling all of your paperwork. They're a licensed real estate professional as well. When you buy, you're going to be working with one of our buyer specialists. And when you go out and you work with them, understand that's a partner. That's a reflection of me. They're out. They're working with the same transaction coordinator, the same squad that's getting this done. I'm just a part of this big machine that is well-oiled, well-polished, and ready to serve you, right? So it is a different conversation, right? Individual agents, as much as I understand and have respect for them, they just can't keep up with the amount of service that we're able to provide because of the fact that I have such a big squad. I have such a big team. The thing is no huge mission was ever accomplished alone, right? You have to get a squad. I just so happen to have a company, right? So there's a different way to form these things that shows a certain level of disdain for that of which you do not have, which then empowers you within the eyes of your client. Now, understand that you are not the best at everything. You're not the best at everything. So if you're not the best at everything, shouldn't you be firing yourself regularly? Shouldn't you be waking up? And I say this in 2 different ways. I wake up regularly and I think, who can I get to do this for me? And people think, oh, that's awful. You're just a dictator. I'm like, no, if I'm thinking, who can I get to do this for me? I'm creating a job. I'm creating an opportunity. I'm creating abundance instead of focusing on scarcity, which then allows me as a rainmaker to continue to go elsewhere with my mind and free up other opportunities, right? So the idea is, of course, to create other leaders. Now, when you understand that you're not the best at everything, you fire yourself regularly. You empower other people. You understand that eventually a squad leader hopefully becomes a company leader, who then eventually becomes a battalion leader, and then a regimental leader. You want to grow and you want to encourage other people to grow because when you're firing yourself, you're hiring somebody else. That's the truth in it. Okay, so when you're hiring people, your first hire should be a transaction coordinator. 100% on your very first transaction, even if you're being mentored, et cetera, and so forth, you want somebody who's going to help you out in that way. The second person that you should be hiring should either be a showing assistant, which means that they're not writing contracts, or a buyer's agent, which means that they are writing contracts, they're a little bit more engaged, they're going to show up, they're going to do their own Avid, they're going to do their VP, they're going to be one of the main lines of direct communication. Versus, like I said, a showing assistant, which just basically is opening up the doors, right? 25% commission versus like 50 to 60% commission, right? And then the last person that you want to hire who's going to replace you on the listing side is going to be a listing agent or a listing lead. Now, of course, all of these different people eventually become leaders in their own right. I want to get into this a little bit, right? Because this is extraordinarily important to understand. Okay, here we go. Let's go and let's pop this up here. Let's make this a little bit smaller. And of course, I still have a lot that I want to teach you guys. So I'm going to try to move a little bit quickly. So what you do is, in the beginning, you have you're one person, right? This pen sucks. In the beginning, you are one person. And then what happens is you start firing yourself. I almost tried to drag that circle down. That's hilarious. I'm just going to drag the circle down a little bit. Okay, hold up. In the beginning, you're one person. Now, you want to eventually, let's see, I need to draw myself some boundaries here. Eventually, you have to hire people to replace you. The first person is going to be your transaction coordinator. The second person is, like I said, it's either going to be a buyer's specialist or a buyer's agent. And I have some more notes on that here in a moment. And then, of course, the last person is going to be a listing specialist. Eventually, you're going to want to hire a really good administrative assistant, which will become very important because then eventually that administrative person will become your operations manager, who will then run your team and become the main point of contact for everybody else so that you're limiting the amount of people who can reach you, right? So the idea here is when you're hiring a TC, you hire one TC who eventually hires other TCs to be her assistant, right? And if you're hiring them, let's say you're paying them $500 a transaction, which then gives them an opportunity. If you're closing 15, 20 deals, they can cut that pie up a little bit and then pay their admins as well. Some people elect to do their own transaction coordination business. That's something that I haven't necessarily wanted to do, but of course there is money in that as well. But pigs get fed and hogs get slaughtered. I feel like everybody should do what they're designed for. This person is a team lead, but I'm going to call them a rainmaker. There's a difference between a team lead. Get some freaking water. A big difference between a team lead and a rainmaker. A team lead and a manager, right? A lot of people are managers because they don't know how to lead, which means that they want to manage not only your success, but they want to make sure that you don't see too much of it, right? Because if you see too much success, you become a threat to them and their little fragile baby ego. So you want to make sure that as a rainmaker is never threatened because a rainmaker makes rain. How can you be threatened by rain, a lack of rain, right? If you're making more rain and then you're teaching people how to farm, how to cultivate their business, et cetera and so forth, then you don't have to hold down other people. In fact, you're very excited about empowering others. So the idea here with the transaction coordinator is then they're going to hire other transaction coordinators, right? The idea here with the buyer's agent is there's a saying with buyer's agents which is absolutely true, which is 2 pigs at the trough will get fat. Okay, so you want to get at least 2 pigs at the trough. Now, I apologize to buyer's agents. If you don't like it, become a business owner. 2 pigs at the trough will get fat because they're eating, and instead of looking at their own food, they're looking over at the other person like, right? So that's what they're doing. They're constantly looking to the left and right of them. Now, you never want to hire just one person, especially on the buyer's agent side of things, because you want to have multiple people because now this is the truth. As long as they're not a cancer. Cancers are dangerous. You have to cut them out completely. You have to eliminate them. You have to get rid of them. You cannot treat a cancer in a team, right? That being said, the dojo is a place of enlightenment. If somebody's just not enlightened, that's one thing. But if somebody is a cancer, you've got to get rid of them. So your buyer's team, you're going to be the main point of contact for a while, right? Now, that being said, eventually you'll get to a point to where you'll have a squad, and then you're going to have a main buyer's agent who's going to be handling this squad. They're a squad leader now. They got promoted. Your transaction coordinator is now a squad leader. They got promoted. They have ownership in other people's business. Now, with EXP, that's easy to do because your buyer's agents are incentivized in recruiting other people to the team, to the squad, to the brokerage, nationally, internationally, it doesn't matter. If they have a network, your network will determine your net worth. Buyer's agents have ownership in their business immediately at EXP. They have ownership in the team immediately at EXP. They get an opportunity to create more of it, right? So what will happen is eventually you'll have one person managing everything. The listing agent is you until you hire somebody who can then manage other listings as your main listing agent. And of course, then this starts to look like, well, what is that if you're in the Marine Corps? Well, that's a fire team leader. Now, what is that if you're In the Marine Corps, this is a fire team leader. This is a fire team leader. But this is a rifle squad, right? And now a rifle squad requires a squad leader, right? So when you end up, like, I was looking through Machine Gunner's Guide to Real Estate, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, well, geez, well, here's your saw gunner, here's your rifleman, here's your rifleman, here's your rifleman, and then what do you need in order to fill this in, of course, and then no, here's your weapons attachment, you know what I mean? And these are your specialists, these are your machine gunners, these are your badass dudes like me. No, I'm just kidding. All the riflemen are totally badass. But you need a corpsman. Oh, well, your corpsman needs to get fit in there. So what happens is you start realizing that in order to make rain or in order to make war, you need to hire. You need to diversify your power. You need to empower other people. And so what happens is you end up hiring specialists instead of hiring employees. Does that make sense? If your life depends on somebody, they are a specialist. If your life does not depend on them, they're an employee. If you are in partnership with somebody, they're a partner. If they're not, they're on my team. They're on my team. They're on mine. Now, might as well just make that a big fat my, mine, I, right? So there's a lot of this in this ugly valley. A lot of ego. A lot of ego. Mine, I. So what your job is as the team lead is to continue to eliminate the my, I, right? Continue to eliminate this ugly bastard from your business. The second that you ever get somebody who's on your team who says, oh, well, you know what? You know how many I, you know how many my, you know how many mine? They become a cancer. They're a big, fat, ugly ego cancer. So you get rid of your ego cancers. You keep your people who are capable of empathy. You remove your narcissist, and your squad will survive. That's the truth. Okay, so let's get back into, because that's a really important thing. And of course, when we're looking at all of this, we've got, our high Ds. This is a high D personality typically. You can be an SC, but in order to do this, you've really got to be like a high D personality. Your TC needs to be an SC. They cannot be a dominant I. If they're a dominant I in their DISC assessment, they're probably going to talk more than they work. And that is more of something that you want in your buyer's agents because their job is to network. Their job is to talk. You want your buyer's agent talking to people. You just want to teach them how to not feel bad about getting their information and then making them a client, right? Now, your listing agent, that's your shark. That's your person that you understand that these are shark-infested waters that we swim in. It doesn't mean that you get out because there's food in the water. It means that you embrace the fact that you're a shark. We have eyes on the front of our heads because we're predators, right? So that's the truth. Now, what makes us a human being is our ability for duality. We get to make decisions. We get to decide whether or not we are going to act in a certain way, whether or not what we are going to eat, who we are going to eat, etc., and so forth. So that's the team. We're going to get. I'm going to go over my notes really quick because I went off on some tangents here. I actually feel like this is really good. Oh, your assistant has to be salaried. Everybody else is on commission, right? And the reason for that is they're eventually going to replace you, right? So eventually their salary is going to grow, and then eventually they're going to be running the office or the team or whatever, and then you are no longer going to be involved if that's what you want to be. Or it frees you up to franchise, to take your team in your ideals or your business. And of course, if you're a business owner, this is very apropos for you. This is very apropos, right? So your job is to hire people who can replace you. So then your job is to basically go out and evangelize your business. Go out and create more rain, more opportunities in other places if you believe that there's a high enough demand for your product. If you don't believe that there's a high enough demand for your product and or service, then go join a team or something like that. Okay, so that being said, you either get branded or you either brand yourself and become something that you believe in, or you join something that you believe in. And that's 100% okay. I don't want to crap on teams too much. There are actually some really excellent teams out there, but you will understand the difference, and that's the my, mine, I. There are really, really great team leaders who just understand the power that comes from we. The power that comes from we. So that's the difference between the ego-based team lead and the leader. Oh crap, that's my 5-minute warning and I'm totally not even ready at all, not even a little bit. So you want the we, you want a leader, because leaders create other leaders. You do not want a manager. You don't want someone who, because managers manage talent. Geez, Serpa, I'm like going to chase myself right off. Managers manage talent, whereas leaders cultivate talent. Having a good leader, a good mentor, a good team lead will help you if you love that kind of stuff. I love being a part of a team. It excites me, right? Other people, they don't necessarily want to be a part of a team. They want to fly solo. But the truth is no matter what you do, you're always going to be part of a team. Right? If you really want to accomplish something big, it's just a matter of who you're considering part of your team. Otherwise, you're just, you're doing art in a closet. Like you're playing guitar in your closet, you're making painting that no one will see. You're not really doing anything that's, you want someone to see, so that doesn't really mean anything. So never accept, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lightning round some stuff, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get into commission boot camp here with Zach Bach. Never accept mediocrity. Your teams did not join your organization to become mediocre, right? They looked at something that was exceptional about what you had going on, and they said, I want to be exceptional as well. I want to cultivate this part of my lifestyle, right? You want to, there's a saying, and I love it, eagles don't pal around with turkeys, right? So the thing is, you want to help people learn how to fly, or you want to celebrate them for how well they can swim. Right? Which is pretty interesting. Invest in your team. You have to invest 3 things in your team in order to grow. Time, energy, and money. You have to do all 3. Speech is not free. You have to purchase it. Right now, you can literally purchase speech. You can purchase advertising through Facebook advertising, media marketing, etc. We've talked about it. If you've missed Greg's class, that's a great place to look at it. You can purchase fame in a lot of ways. Glenn Twiddle talks about it. He's the #1 real estate coach in Australia. Squad leaders. If you're firing yourself as a team lead, you're becoming a squad leader. If you're firing yourself as a buyer's agent, you are becoming a team lead. You cannot be a team lead and still work buyers. And as far as I'm concerned, you can't be a team lead and still work buyers, because at that point you've committed yourself to growth and listings, right? You should only hire when you're bursting at the seams. We have too much business, or we want to accomplish too much in order to do it alone, right? We want to diversify our power, et cetera, and so forth. If you're not bursting at the seams, you are creating sort of like indentured servants, because there's no expectation of them getting paid. That being said, in the beginning of a career, beginning of a team, like I started our first team with Jennifer and Rob because we wanted to appear larger together. Everybody had very high splits. I didn't take much from them. I gave more to them. I gave them some mentorship. They gave me mentorship. We grew together. But what I did was immediately I stopped working with buyers. I fired myself. I said, I'm only going to work with listings. And then eventually I was like, I'm not going to work with listings anymore. We've got to eat. We've got to figure out a way to do it. And then so there's got to be a willingness to fire yourself, because then that becomes the last man out mentality. Okay, everybody's eating. Everybody's eating. Everybody's got food on their plate. Okay, I'm going to take all this food off my plate. I'm going to go create more food. I'm going to go hunt, right? The best squad leader I ever had was Jeff Reber. And Sergeant Reber, who eventually became Staff Sergeant Reber, was the last man out. I would fire with a machine gun, and a lot of people would displace. He would be the guy who was willing to fire so that I could displace, so that I could move. Now, there's a saying in the military with machine gunnery, movement without suppression is suicide. So my job as a business owner is to lay down suppression so that my employees, my partners, the people that I work with, whatever, the yogi, the comedian, etc., so they can move, they can rainmake. I want to create opportunities and then create more opportunities because then that gives great people a microphone and a stage, period. I want to give great people a microphone and a stage. I want to empower them, period. Okay, all right, lightning round. I said I was going to do it. Your job is to limit your points of contact. Eventually, your job is not to be a boss, it's to be a leader. If it is lonely at the top, you're doing it wrong. If it's lonely at the top, you haven't put a hand down to pull another person up. Also, you've considered yourself at the top, which means that you're at the bottom of the wrong pyramid. There's something for you. There's something for you. You're considering yourself at the top, you're in the wrong room. If you think that you're the smartest person around, you might be in the wrong room, period. Your job is to develop your family, your culture, but your job is also to drink the Kool-Aid too. At one point, Rob said to me, he said, if we're going to do this, you've got to drink the Kool-Aid just as much as we're drinking the Kool-Aid. I'm like, hey, I hear that. If you're not 100% about your team, they won't be 100% about you. We talked about the team versus the individual. We talked about all of that. I was going to get into splits, but instead we're just going to go ahead and move forward. What can you do for me that I can't do for myself? I love people that come in and they're like, I create something new that you didn't even think about. Or I am a missing piece. Not a, how can I take something? But I also like the people who say, how can I take something off your hands, right? Okay, so the next evolution of business is ownership. You should not have people telling you what you can and cannot do with your own money, right? So if nobody washes a rental car, nobody says, oh man, this is a rental car, so I'm just going to take it really easy. I'm just going to really treat this thing nice. I'm actually going to go take it to get an oil change because I realize the speedometer is getting a little high, right? But if you give people ownership in the businesses that they've created, that they're creating, that's real. That's real. That's exciting. Because if somebody has ownership, they're more likely to contribute, don't you think? Because then they're more likely to pull a wagon. They're more likely to get out and push versus just getting in. We as real estate agents are perpetually preaching ownership, and yet we have none of it in our own business. So if you're not getting stock, if you're not getting rev share, if you are not an owner in your business, but you feel like an employee, you feel like you're getting managed instead of led, if you feel like you're the biggest fish in your pond and you want to be exposed to some next level thought outside of this valley, outside of your area, outside of your region, and you want to start thinking nationally, right? But then acting locally, right? Think globally, act locally. Expose yourself to bigger thought, implement the thought, right? It's one thing to go to a huge conference, a huge network, attend a class, but if you're not implementing, you're not implementing, right? You're essentially putting yourself in a situation where people say, well, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. Well, forget your menu. We're writing the menu now, right? We're outside the restaurant with pitchforks. It's time to eat. We've got our blow torches or freaking, whatever. It's time to eat. We're going to eat, right? It's time for us to eat. Let's eat, not me, my, I, right? The big fat ego monster that is so predominant in this mean girl valley, in this valley in which the men, act like mean girls and the women act like mean girls, and everybody's trying to bully each other out of the industry. Me, mine, I. Oh, we. Me. We're here. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. That's a ridiculous thing to say. We're writing the menu. Come join us. The restaurant's called Our Community, and we've got comedy and yoga and all sorts of great stuff, but we're also eating. Grand opening this Friday. How do you like me now? How do you like me now? Thursday. Excuse me. Thanks, Sam. How do you like me now? That's why it's good to have a team. Because then when you're talking crap, they can come in and join you and be like, hey, man, just so you know, it's actually freaking Thursday. But that's it. Yum, yum. Johnny Herrera is going to be in studio. Mudalajara Gaia is going to be in studio on Our Community News. We've got Terry Kincaid and Emma with Fairy Wands. And what? Okay. Butter Mom's going to be here, and they're part of our merchant market, and we love them. Yes, yes, yes. Everybody have a freaking wonderful day. I'll stick around on Zoom for a minute to answer any questions that anybody might have. Bye, guys.